Well, hello, Azsuperman01. This is my video response to your video response to my video. Anyway, thank you for the video response. It'll give me a chance, I think, to better articulate some of my things I was trying to say in my last video, because I admit I didn't articulate some of those things as well as I would have liked to. Now, in the first part of your video, you try to defend your claim that the whole idea of what the cause of the universe being God, doesn't follow from the argument and everything, that it's just stuff, sort of philosophical stuff that Craig tacks on later. And you're right that it doesn't, strictly speaking, follow from the argument, but nevertheless, there are good reasons to hold that the cause of the universe would be a personal being, such as God, and that you didn't really address much of those, so I can't really comment too much on that, though. But there are arguments for that, and I think they're sound arguments for that. So, yeah. Now, the next part, you then talk about what I meant when I said the natural world natural. I mean, you know, I said that when we say the universe began to exist, we mean, you know, physical reality, time, space, matter, all that stuff, and you seem to agree with that, though. You then just said that it basically then rules out the whole probabilistic causality that Craig uses to avoid virtual particles. I don't think that it does, but I'll get into that later. And I think I should also clear up some confusion here about the whole why it can't be a fairy or a rhinoceros or anything, though. Here's the thing. The reason I put that clip there with that debate with William Lane Craig was because what his opponent, Lewis Wolpert, was arguing, it just struck me, at least, as being very similar to what you were arguing here. He was basically saying that even if you grant the two premises, whatever begins to exist has a cause, the universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause, he said that, well, the cause can't be God and everything, and then Craig pointed out that well, you know, remember I gave an argument for thinking that this cause must be timeless, spaceless, immaterial, personal, and all that. And, you know, then he tried to say stuff like, I think it's a computer and everything. And then the point really was that if you agree with that reasoning, the cause is timeless, spaceless, immaterial, powerful, and personal, if you agree with the arguments for that, and I don't really recall you getting into those arguments for why it can't be that, you kind of seem to just assert that it couldn't, though. But if you agree that the cause would possess those attributes, well, then it can't be a rhinoceros or a fairy or a computer, because, you know, a rhinoceros is physical, yes. Now, you said fairies don't exist. I'm saying if a fairy did exist, it would have to be physical. Now, you know, you could always retort, like Lewis Wolpert did in the debate. You could say, well, couldn't it be, you know, a non-physical rhinoceros, or a non-physical fairy, a non-physical, timeless, changeless, immaterial, powerful, personal rhinoceros and fairy? And then, which gets to the point that Craig makes, and I was kind of trying to get across, probably not very well, but that once you do that, it's just a semantical argument, because you're just naming God something else. You know, you're calling something like a rhinoceros a timeless, spaceless, immaterial, powerful, and personal being. It's just a semantic game at that point. Now, you can always try and argue for why the cause can't be personal, or why it's not timeless or spaceless or all that good stuff. You can always argue that if you want to, but if you grant that, then you can't say it's something like a fairy or a rhinoceros and everything. Now, I know this is part of what you call the sort of tacked-on philosophical arguments, but they are valid, I think, though, and if you want to dispute why Craig is wrong on that, you know, you are free to do so. I mean, he gives arguments like, you know, uses the Islamic principle of determination. And now, the next part that you take issue with was, well, you talked about the part of my video where I critique the part where you were talking about how nothing begins to exist. You were basically saying that nothing begins to exist in the way the universe exists. I mean, let me clarify this here. Yes, nothing begins to exist the way the universe did, ex nihilo. But see, when we say, like, whatever begins to exist has a cause here, when we say begin to exist, I mean that in a very broad sense. I mean, to include either, you know, spontaneously popping into existence or rearranging of of matter into something. I mean, both examples constitute as beginning to exist here. Now, you complained that I didn't really explain what the real difference is between the the quantum vacuum and the nothing, which I claim the universe comes out of. Here's the thing. When I say nothing, when I say the universe originated from nothing, I mean nothing in the sense that philosophers use it. The absence of all being. That is to say, there was not anything. Okay? Whereas a quantum vacuum is obviously not absence of reality. Okay? Like I said, it's a sea of fluctuating energy and particles, so there is a big difference between virtual particles popping out of a quantum vacuum and universe coming into existence from nothing, from non-being, from the absence of all being. There is a big difference between the two. Also, the reason that quantum mechanics can't apply to the universe as a whole is that if it originated from nothing, from the absence of all reality, that means if there's absence of all reality, there is no quantum laws from which to spring a universe into existence. So that's another reason why there's a big difference between a universe coming into being from absence of all reality to something coming from a quantum vacuum. That's why there's a difference between that. Because in the case of a quantum vacuum, you've got physical laws or whatnot, you've got physical laws and all that stuff, but you have no physical laws when the universe comes into being from nothing. So yeah, again, there is a difference between the two. I hope I've explained that enough. If you still feel I haven't explained that well enough, feel free to let me know. Also, I should point out the idea of the argument is that since you can't count down from infinity, it's like to get to today, you'd have to get to yesterday. Before you get to yesterday, you'd have to go through today, and so on and so forth, and you just keep getting driven back, and nothing could ever start. You would never get to today because you'd have to cross infinity to get to today. Yet here we are. That's the idea behind the argument. And you try to refute this by basically giving me Zeno's paradox, because you ask how many numbers is there between 1 and 2? Well, 1, and then how many numbers is there between 1.5 and 1, and then you can keep basically you can keep halving it and halving it. And thus, we cross infinity all the time. This is not analogous to crossing infinity when it comes to getting from infinity to today. We're not talking about starting from point A and getting to point B. We're talking about having no beginning and getting to an end. In other words, what Zeno's paradox is, as is pointed out by people like William Lane Craig, is that deals with potential infinities, unequal infinities. There's no actual real equal points. There's just, it's just a potential infinity. It's not analogous to crossing infinity the way the past would be. In the past, you would have actual and equal sets, like you would have an equal set of a day, like 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day, that you would have to pass. There's an infinite stream. It's not about having infinity within a finite space. That's not an example of actual infinities. So, no, that argument does not refute the transversing infinity argument, as I pointed out, by the way, in my response to No True Scotsman, because he gave a very similar response to what you just gave. So, since I can't fit all this into one 10-minute video, I have a second video, so be sure to check that out for the second part of my response. Take care.